So Michaela, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Automation Solution Podcast. We're very excited
Thanks.
to have you.
I'm super excited.
Is this like the first time you've done a podcast for the manufacturing industry?
It is, and we've talked about this before, but I do have clients in manufacturing, so I'm really, really pumped to share some of the things that I know, some of the things that I've shared with my clients. Yeah, this is going to be fun.
It is, yeah. So you know, I mean, the typical listeners will have, C-level managers, engineers, maintenance managers. So really, the food, beverage, like paper, plastics, building materials are kind of the industries that we typically target, and that's who's kind of come on to this podcast. So you'll have big brand names all the way down to maybe little specialty gourmet type products. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Love it.
Now, before I get into some questions that I have for you, I did your little bio so everybody knows kind of on the intro a little bit about your background. And I actually don't know the details of this, but you got into this whole LinkedIn game was it a viral, like an article that you wrote? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I started on LinkedIn. I think I had an account. It's kind of embarrassing, but someone out there is going to be like, yep, me too. I started on LinkedIn in 2011, and I had no idea what the heck it was for. I didn't know if it was like a Rolodex. I didn't know if it was just for job seekers. So I just kind of left it until about 2016. And I was 29 years old. It was a month before my 30th birthday. I was working at a tech startup, was laid off, and it was like everything just hit me all at once. I imagined where my parents were at. And so for me, like 30 was really significant because I felt like at that age, I would have all my stuff together. I'd have the big house, the family, the stable career, most importantly. And when I looked around, I realized that I wasn't really any further ahead at that point than I had been years prior. And that's when I started to think about personal branding without even knowing that it was personal branding. I just kind of felt like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way than just kind of playing by the rules, trying to follow some blueprint that I don't even know who made up this career blueprint, but it wasn't working for me. And LinkedIn for me was a way that I could share a little bit more about my experience and my personality. It was more of an equalizer rather than competing with 10, 20, 100 people that are applying for these jobs and being a paper and a stack of resumes. I wanted people to get to know me. And so originally I started sharing content around social media marketing, which is my background. And then I kind of moved into my experience as a job seeker and some of like the self-esteem issues that we all struggle with, but nobody really wants to admit it, right? And especially in the business world. And it resonated. For the first time in 2 weeks, just by building my brand on LinkedIn. I had a post saying that I wouldn't send out a single resume. I was going to rely on the LinkedIn community. I shared what I offered, shared what I was looking for, and messages started pouring in from people that I knew, but also people that I didn't know at all. And that was really interesting to me because I'm like, community isn't dead. People actually still care about other human beings.
Right.
And I ended up turning down 4 job offers within a 2-week period, landing my then dream job. And my first article that went viral was called How I Landed My Dream Job in 2 Weeks on LinkedIn. And I had no intentions of it going viral. I've done like the pretty white papers and all these things that we think are like the thing, right? That people are going to be like, oh my gosh. This thing was like, I wrote it in like half an hour. I stole memes off the internet. It was really unpolished, especially for what I normally do. And this thing, just to give you kind of a little bit more context, it broke LinkedIn for me. Like I went and did like my errands. I went and got groceries after I wrote this, came back, tried to open the LinkedIn app on my phone, and it just kept trying to open and then it would shut down. And then I was like, well, LinkedIn has glitches, so maybe it's just another glitch. I went on to the desktop version, and I don't know, the people that are like the OGs on LinkedIn and have been using it for a while will remember this. There used to be a section on LinkedIn where you could actually look at your analytics, like who's visited your page, and there's like a graph and everything. And so I tried to go to that, and same thing, kept like trying to open and then shut down. I'm like, what is going on? I look in the top right corner and I just see thousands of connection requests coming in, and you know, went from a few hundred to 13,000 connections within like a 1 week period. And
That's
so as a
crazy.
marketer, I had to look at that and say, not only, you know, wow, this thing happened, but why did it happen?
Right.
Right. I wanted to dissect why it did, because otherwise you can't replicate that success. And for me, it was relatable, it was conversational, and it was helpful. And that was a huge gap in the marketplace at that point, where LinkedIn, we were constantly going on and sharing the awards that we've won and all these amazing things that we've done, which, yes, sure, help people understand our competence, but it also doesn't connect us to other human beings. And so over the last 4 years, I've been just building my community on LinkedIn, run all sorts of weird, crazy campaigns. I had an empty bookshelf at one point and tried to think of ways that I could serve not just my job seekers in my community, but also people that were trying to impress their bosses, also people that were building their own businesses. I was like, what can I do for those people? And so I put out an open call. I said, send me your company's mug, tell me your story, and I'll share it with my network. I honestly thought maybe I would get a couple so I could decorate this shelf in my office.
Right.
And I had to shut that campaign down because I had to actually find another bookcase, and it filled up with it's like 250 mugs from around the world, from NASA, the US Capitol. I had mugs with my face on them.
That is so cool.
And it just got out of control. In fact, I still have one I'm staring at it right now. It's a big like planter mug. It's like, I'm on a podcast, so I really shouldn't be using my hands, but it's about the size of like 2 of my heads, and it came from the UK, which I don't even want to know what the shipping was on that, but people were just sending these things around the world, and it just became such a visual reminder that we are still so connected, but it just looks a little bit different. And then 2 years ago, launched a campaign called #Let'sGetHonest on LinkedIn, where we encourage professionals to share a challenge or vulnerability that they've had to overcome in their career. And that campaign reached over 26 million users on LinkedIn. So same sort of thing. I have no intention of any of these things, like people actually caring about them and then end up like striking some nerve or like hitting on something that people need to share. And so I've been really, really lucky to not only run these campaigns, but also watch other professionals grow. And then it's become a full-time gig, as you know, to help professionals, audiences, and businesses shine on LinkedIn. And it's just really the best job in the world.
Well, that is awesome. That's a great story. And I think it's a great segue, because the typical, I would say, company and user, and I think, Michaela, we got to look at this to help our listeners look at this from as a business and then also from the personal side. Mm-hmm. But I would tell you 95%, and I'm making that number up, but it's got to be pretty close, of the folks that are in the manufacturing industry and or services that supply, whether you're supplying product or maybe labor, whatever that might be, to help support these big businesses, you know, we don't really know how to use LinkedIn. You know, we just, it's kind of like you'll see pictures, photos from everyone that looks like they're, you know, on the you go in the restroom, you got somebody that's got their 8 kids around them with cats and dogs in their photos. And so I just don't feel like anyone has an idea of number one, what it can do for you if it's used correctly. And then number 2, what can we help everybody? You know, what little takeaways can they use almost immediately to start to really, you know, and maybe they're not going to get 26 million likes or follows on a campaign, but they can really change their business if it's used correctly. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's something that I struggled with for a really long time. And that's why I kind of avoided LinkedIn for so long. I would say the first step is a mindset shift. And we've talked about this before, but LinkedIn is just essentially, it's the world's largest networking event. There's almost 700 million active users on the platform. So especially when you start thinking about imagery, that makes a lot of sense, right? You wouldn't go to a networking event and be crossing your arms and have a shadow cast over your face. That would be super weird. You probably wouldn't talk to that person. On the other hand, you also probably wouldn't bring your 4 kids and be walking around a networking event holding all of their hands. And so there has to be some sort of happy medium. It's really simple. Just get down on a human level. And I always say that there's 3 C's that create a strong personal brand. Number 1 is competence. So yes, absolutely, you need to show that you know your stuff. Number 2 is confidence. And number 3 is consistency. So whatever you're posting on LinkedIn in terms of imagery and getting started is what you should be offline. So I think that we are still trying to kind of shed ourselves from this billboard, radio ad, yellow pages era where we're like, okay, well, we just need to show that we know what we're doing, and then we're going to land clients. That's just not the business world anymore. And people have, excuse me, so much choice available to them that it's not about finding somebody that's competent anymore. It's more about finding somebody that you know, like, and trust. And so really, if we scale it all down, let's not worry so much about the competence piece, because unless somebody knows, likes, and trusts you, they're not really going to care about what you offer or how you can potentially work together.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it does. So then, that's, from a personal side. So if I'm just looking at my notes too, is obviously you want to just be yourself. Like, so I love the analogy of, like, if you're at a networking event, how do you handle yourself? How do you communicate? Yep. And think of LinkedIn as just this huge platform that allows you to do it 24/7, 365, right? Yep. And now with the pandemic going on, it's even more important to figure out how to really leverage a platform like LinkedIn.
Yep.
So, okay, so I get this. So now, but if thinking of a company, how does a company do the same thing in share? Because we're so used to, even websites still, as you know, it's just kind of static. It's like, blah, here's what we do.
Yeah. So, and that's a huge issue. I have a lot of clients that are in traditional industries, accounting, legal, real estate is one that really struggles with this, where they're essentially using their LinkedIn presence as an extension of their newsletter that people don't really read, right? Yeah. And it again goes back to this idea of, okay, let's just put out ads. And that, by the way, that is not to say that ads do not work, right? There's lots of targeting options and all of those things, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is this, like, pray and spray message where you just put out, this is what we offer, come and buy from us, without really showing that you understand the challenges and struggles of your prospects, and giving them all of the information that they could possibly need in order to make the decision to work with you or buy from you. I think that part is really, really important. That was a huge shift for me, because I started to think about, okay, what is, and I won't get too much into this because then I'm going to get on my soapbox about the value of websites. Again, I'm biased because I land all of my business through LinkedIn. But what is the purpose of a website? Let's think about that for a second. So first things first, we want to talk about our services, our products. We want to talk about our, and this is where it gets, we can kind of combine the two, our mission. Super important, right? To have that part on your website that talks about your values. What's another important part on your website? Your FAQs. That's huge. To say what people, what are they struggling with? What are their challenges? How do you address those things? And then the third one is, I've never even explained about it this way, and it makes so much sense in my head now. The about section. And I would guarantee that probably those 3 pages are some of the most looked at 3 pages on your website. So your FAQs, your about us section, where people can actually see who works within the company, and your mission, your values, right? Why is that? Because even if somebody knows what your product and service is, they need to know who works there. They need to know that you understand their challenges and the struggles that they're dealing with. And they want to know what you're all about, right? And so if we can then take those pieces and put it onto a company presence and say, okay, let's just have like days where we're just addressing, let's take our FAQ section and don't just let it live on the website, but also let's create videos maybe. Let's create text and photo posts showing how to do certain things. Let's try to do some quick tutorials. I'm doing those all the time. If somebody asks me a question, they'll send it to me in my LinkedIn inbox, and then I'll be like, I got you. And then that's content, right? Because then I just have to go on my computer and I literally just do a screen cap showing people how to do certain things. Now I know that's not, you can't really do a screen cap in manufacturing, and I understand that absolutely. But there's definitely ways that you can show and explain how certain things work and how you do business. And so that's what people are looking for. It's almost like, I want to get rid of this idea that it's a page, because it's not that. It's really a place where you can serve your community and where you can address all of these, all of the things that people might need to know in order to work with you. So whether it's space, when I was working at an IT support company, you know, it was really huge, and this is probably huge in manufacturing too. I want to see inside the company. Right. Because especially like in IT, it was important because people are like, if I'm going to trust you with my data, I need to know what your setup looks like. Same thing with manufacturing, right?
Yeah.
I need to know what your plant looks like. I need to know what your process looks like before we can have a real conversation. And so we like, you know, when it comes to social media, a lot of people think of work. It's like, oh, it's add another thing to my to-do list, Michaela. I want us to, let's think about this for a second, because I actually think it's the opposite. If you can invest in your LinkedIn presence as a manufacturing company and address all of the things that we've already talked about, guess what? By the time you get on a phone call with a prospect, you're not talking about those things.
That's
so
true.
You're actually saving money by addressing them. And that's why we have all of these sections on our website to begin with, because we don't want to have those conversations on the phone about, you know, do our values align, and people getting to know the people within the company. So that's just something to think about, is that it can actually increase your productivity and increase your bottom line and have you spend more time and save your sanity. Because let's admit it, right? Sometimes we get on a phone call with somebody and we're like, how did you find my number? How, like, what?
Right.
And that's, for me, it's all about pre-qualifying those prospects.
So there's two things I just took away from this, and that was fantastic. And one, I might ask you to get back on your soapbox even more. But if you think about it, if your business page and let's say the key employees of that company all really understand LinkedIn and really put forth the effort, and all the information's there, you know, yes, you're still going to have a website, right? I get that. But wouldn't you want to spend your time and money and put it in LinkedIn versus spending $50,000 to have this really pretty website that's got video? And because honestly, when I look at companies and people, the first place I go is LinkedIn. I don't look for their website. Mm-hmm. Now, is that the norm? I mean, is there any statistics around that you can share?
In terms of people where they're looking, not necessarily, but I mean, there's 30 million company pages that are on LinkedIn. And so absolutely, I mean, whether you're a job seeker, an employee, an employer, people are looking you up on LinkedIn. And if you don't believe me, go and take a look at who's visiting your profile. That's all the information that you need right there. And it's really about just capturing the attention of those people. And when it comes to, this is what gets me really excited, is that I started building my LinkedIn page after building my personal brand to over 100,000 people, because I wanted to show companies like the ones that you're speaking to right now what is possible. So just to give you some context, I've only been doing this for 2 years solo, but I did have companies before.
Right.
I've never spent a dime on advertising. That's not to say that's not the norm, right? There's reasons that I also don't do advertising, because I'm not actually a good candidate for LinkedIn ads. And that's what one question that comes up a lot for me is, should I spend money on ads? One of my friends, his name is AJ Wilcox. He's like the leading expert on LinkedIn ads. He's great to follow. But generally the rule of thumb is you want to use LinkedIn ads only if you have clients with a lifetime value of over $15,000. Now for me, I have low cost products and they go up in price. And so I'm not an ideal candidate for ads. And that's fine, because I've been able to make a great living just on organic growth.
Right.
And so I started my LinkedIn page mostly because it was actually a challenge from somebody that said that LinkedIn pages don't work. And I was like, that to me, that's crazy because it looks like such an opportunity. Have built it to, I don't even know what it's at right now. I think it's at 12,000 followers. And so if I, without any money on ads, and I don't have any employees, can build a page, and not just in followers, but also in activity. There's a lot of engagement on my page. Why can bigger companies not do this? So that's where I get excited,
Right.
because I think about these small, medium enterprise companies that not only can you have a page that you can grow organically, but you can also nurture the personal brands within your organization and grow exponentially, right? Because once you start adding admins, team members as admins, they can invite their community to follow the page. You
Right.
can create LinkedIn events, and then your admins, all of your admins can go out and invite all of their community to the event. So you can host webinars and live events and broadcast within LinkedIn. So there are just so many opportunities right now that LinkedIn is rolling out to help businesses, especially during the pandemic, gain that organic traction. So I think it's super exciting.
So why, and I'm with you. I totally agree. I've seen it. I've been a LinkedIn member since the very beginning. Have definitely not used it the right way. There's things I'm learning from you that I'm going to be doing differently. But I've watched it grow. And why is it you think we have so many companies, and these could be companies that are 100 million to $5 billion companies that have huge budgets, right?
Mhm.
Huge marketing teams,
Yeah.
yet they're missing the boat on LinkedIn. They're not even paying attention to it.
I think that, we talk a lot about, and I hear from clients, that run small, medium-sized businesses, and there's a little bit of this idea that, well, we're not Amazon, we're not Facebook, and I actually think that that is a great thing, to not be in that position, because you have so many other things to think about. They are not able to pivot as easily as small and medium-sized businesses. They're not able to be as creative. You look at some of the things that have happened with COVID and the anti-racism movement and all these things,
Yep.
and they have to put out these very, very polished, rigid statements about all of these issues because of the position that they're in.
Right.
And so I think that's why they're missing the mark when it comes to LinkedIn, because they just don't have that same ability that smaller businesses do. One of the best companies, if anybody's listening and wants to learn more about LinkedIn pages, one of my favorite companies is called Gong, Gong. And they are just the coolest. And I looked at their page, and you would probably assume that they have a big marketing team. So
Right.
last time I talked to them, there was one person, and then I think that they hired another person that just came on. But they have a tiny team. The reason that they're doing so well is that from the top bottom, their senior management said, okay, we think that our clients are on LinkedIn. Let's just go all in on LinkedIn rather than trying to spread ourselves too thin with things like TikTok and Snapchat
Right.
and
Yep.
Instagram and all of these things. Let's just focus on where our clients are. And that's something that I believe in as well. If you look at my social media activity, you'll see that it's very targeted on LinkedIn. I didn't touch any other social media platforms until, 2 years ago, maybe, when I realized that there was a little bit of a gap that I needed to fill on LinkedIn, and then jumped
Right.
on Instagram. But I don't go beyond that because, well, time, but also it should be about where your potential customers are.
Right.
So, and they're doing all sorts of really great things. And what's really interesting about their content, if you look at it, is that they're constantly trying to get people out of lurking mode and into engaging mode. And I think that's where a lot of like the bigger clients or the bigger companies go wrong, is that they're putting out content, again, kind of being like, okay, if you like this, then go and read this article. If you like this, then go and join our webinar. Where a lot of the smaller companies are understanding that people need multiple touch points before they're going to make a decision. They're not just going
Right.
to follow your page and then buy for you. I wish. I
Yeah.
wish. I'm thinking about those like 12,000 people. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could retire, right?
Yeah.
But that's certainly not how it works. And I mean, the first step is following, for people to put up their hand and say, yes, I'm interested in your products and services. But then the next step is that they're trying to figure out if you hear them, if you see them, right? And so putting out that content that's educational, that's entertaining, is super important, but it's also really important to get them out of lurking mode and into engaging in some sort of way. So how do you do that? Asking questions is a huge way.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes we forget that. We'll put out content and it's like, here's the thing. But what do you want them to do next? Right. So on LinkedIn, especially, and for any companies that are listening, ask people's opinion. Ask people's thoughts on something. If you're trying to decide between a new logo and another logo, ask their opinion, right? We talked about that with your profile photo. Ask people, because when people feel like you can see them and you genuinely want their opinion on something, they feel heard. One of the best things that I put on my page is that, and it's silly, but I had terribly photoshopped myself as a genie. And I said, I'm granting you 3 content wishes. And this is kind of important for people listening. If you are going to create content as a manufacturing company that's going to take you an hour or more, because time is money,
right?
Qualify it. Look, ask your audience what they want. So before I create any sort of long form content, videos, and all those things, I will create a list and say, I'm going to grant you 3 wishes as your content genie. Choose 3, put down your top 3 in the comments below. Yeah. And that's great for multiple different reasons. Number 1, I'm saving time and energy. Number 2, they feel heard, especially when I put out that content. They're like, yeah, that's what I asked for. Because it sounds so simple, but that's how a lot of customers are feeling, right? I didn't ask for that. Why did you think that we wanted that? Right? That goes back to like, putting out the St. Patrick's Day, like generic stock photo. That's a feeling that I get when I see those stock photo holiday photos. I didn't ask for that. Right. I know that it's a holiday, but what is this? What is this doing for me? Right. So I think that's super important. I mean, it all goes back to starting with why. Why are you posting what you are? And LinkedIn polls just came out, and that's a really, really great, easy way, because it's like a step under commenting, right? There's people that are like very comfortable with commenting, but then what about if you do a poll where somebody just needs to click a button, but they can still share their opinion? Well, that's a really great way to start nurturing that relationship.
Yeah, that's huge. So you made a really, really good comment. And I think it really goes down to being purposeful, right? So understanding what message you want your customer to understand about your business, and making sure you're getting creative and entertaining and sharing that information. And I just don't think a lot of companies probably look at it that way. That they think, okay, I need to post once a week, and we're going to use stock images, and I've got somebody I'm paying in the office to do all this stuff. So it's boring. People just go right past that on their LinkedIn feeds. So I want to make sure that we touch on the personal side, because there's one thing that I know our customers or the listeners will struggle with is, so I've heard some companies say, boy, I don't want all of my people on LinkedIn because that's a place where recruiters are just going to go, right? Yeah. And they're scared with allowing their employees to get really creative. And so there's a balance there. But, have you heard people with that concern before?
All the time. I will say that takes a little bit of soul searching, because you could say something similar to, some of your team members wanting to expand their education, right? Sure. Yeah. Oh, I don't want them to take courses because I don't want them to grow. That's what LinkedIn is. It's all about growth. From the companies that I've worked with that have nurtured the personal brands within the firms, have not seen this like shark attack that companies seem to expect. But it's all about instilling confidence in your employees, and also making them feel like they are part, because this is the thing, is that we're moving away from this idea that we have all these different departments and people have very static roles within a company, right?
Right. Yeah.
You're in marketing, your responsibility is social media. That's not how this works anymore, because I guarantee you, if you have somebody within your company that goes on right now and goes on a full political, very controversial rant, they're not going to be like, oh, they're not in the marketing department, let's not complain about them. Your entire company is going to be under fire. So let's stop thinking about personal branding as, well, you know, if people notice them, then they're going to find another job, and more as, these are people that are the voices of your company, and what are they saying, right? Do they recognize the responsibility that they have as the voice of the company? Because it really is like them walking around the world's largest networking event, but guess what? They're wearing your t-shirt, like they've got the logo on their shirt, and you don't know what they're saying. And you're not empowering them to understand how to word for certain things, how to format their posts, how to think critically about the type of impression that they want to make on the world. All of these things are really, really important. And a lot of people make mistakes from a personal branding perspective, not because they're bad people, not because they want to do their employer harm, but because they do not have the training.
And so that's so critical. And I think there's so much that the employees want to share, and they're really good at certain things. That's why a company's hired them, right? They might be a good engineer, or they're good at robotic programming. And why not enable, you know, your staff to be able to share that, right? Whether that's through video or whatever they're comfortable doing, but share, you know, valuable content with their followers, which I'm assuming in return will just benefit the business, right? It helps the overall brand.
Yeah. And it also comes down to, we all want to feel heard and appreciated, regardless of what role we're in. And I think that's where a lot of employees really struggle, because they don't feel like they're part of the brand voice. And it feels good. Like, I have trained so many team members within companies, and the pride that they have when they put out their first article, or when they learn how to do certain things, it matters. It matters that you show that you trust and you have full confidence in your team members. That matters beyond just saying at a team meeting, oh, I trust you, but also don't improve your LinkedIn presence. Don't get any training. Don't do anything that's going to improve you as a human being, which will in turn help the company. So I think it's a little bit short-sighted from so many different angles. And I think it really, really is critical in this day and age to at least have the training for your employees, so that they understand the role that they're playing and the responsibility that they have. And I mean, I encourage people to go beyond that as well, and give people the training that they want. If they want to create LinkedIn articles, or if they are interested in videos, find somebody that can teach them how to create great videos, right? There are so many LinkedIn creators that are out there that offer training in all of these different spaces, and it's going to matter to your employees big time if you empower them to be able to learn how to creatively express themselves. We all love teaching people how things work, and we like to believe that we are playing an important role in everything that we're doing. And so when you have the ability to not only do a job that you love, but also teach other people how certain things work, or how your job functions, that feels really good, right? And why wouldn't you want your employees to feel really good?
Right. No, I agree. So it's, if you I'm just trying to put all this together. We've talked about so many good things, and I do think people get overwhelmed with LinkedIn as well. So then they get frozen, right? They don't even take action. But to boil some of this down into a couple simple steps, let's talk business first, that just making sure, going back through your LinkedIn page, making sure it represents who you are, right? That you have the appropriate messages in there, and they can get support. And I will ask here in a little bit, Michaela, for your contact info so that they know that there's training available as well. But clean that up, be present, and don't just post, right? Go for engagement, be purposeful with what it is that you're doing. And I think that will help a company's brand slowly begin to gain some traction. And then who knows, maybe you get lucky and you have a viral moment. But if not, it's a marathon, right? You've got to, if you do it consistently at whatever that regimen is, if it's daily, weekly, you've got to do it. You've got to be representing, I guess, who your business is. Is that fair to say, kind of?
Yeah, it is.
Business?
And I love that you talked about going viral, because I think that there's this misconception that the more views or the more engagement that you have on posts, the more business you extract from it. And I'll tell you, as somebody, that I've had some posts that have reached 2+ million views and landed in zero business. Why? Because I was talking about my experience as a job seeker. It was all about my values. Sure, down the road, maybe it will turn into business, but that is what happened in that situation. And there's been lots of posts that I've had that are like that.
So
just so that I understand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just so I understand, what's the average, let's say for RōBEX,
sure,
a prospect, what would be the average lifetime value of that prospect?
Oh gosh, if you do a job right, and we're working robotic automation, and you could be anywhere from, we'll have jobs that are $100,000 one-time jobs up to a couple million. But those are that's one transaction. Right. So these you could have transactions every single year. So your lifetime value might be 5 million or 20 million.
Right. So that's much higher than my lifetime value. Absolutely. And I always like to say, so just to give you an example, when I put out videos of my keynotes, like it's like a snippet from my keynote to show that not only that I am a speaker and that I offer this as a service, but also showing how I speak, what my audience has to say. Those posts, if 1,000 people watch it, sometimes I'll land 3 speaking gigs out of it, right? Yeah. And so if you can learn how to create great content, compelling content that resonates with the right audience on LinkedIn, even if 100 people watch that video and you land 1 client out of it, it's certainly worth the time putting it together, right? So this becomes even more, everything that we're talking about becomes more and more valuable, and obviously much more so in the manufacturing world, because the lifetime value of clients is so high. So you don't need a lot. So let's not focus on the quantity. Let's just focus on who are we trying to speak to? How are we going to create a page that resonates with them? Do they understand what the page is all about? And how can we continuously show up and serve them so that they understand everything that they need to know to make that decision to work with us?
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so that's on the company side, and then on the personal side, there's I've actually hired you to help me with this, because there's a lot of things, a lot of unknowns, even for someone like me that has 6,000 followers. I mean, I was slugging through the mud for 8 years to even get to that point, and did it probably the wrong way, right? But so there's a way to, again, be yourself. And I know that whether you're an engineer or you're in sales, you might have a complete different personality and more comfortable doing one thing than another. But there's still a way for everybody to represent themselves the right way, which is the truth, which is showing who they are, which I really believe will help attract and build the meaningful, deep connections that, whether that turns into business or not, is one thing. But I do think that, gaining and building powerful connections just in your industry is valuable, just because you can ask people questions when you're running into troubles. So if we take it all in on the personal side, it's similar, obviously, right? You need to start with, at the very top of the page, start looking through what do you have? Is everything updated? Is it accurate? And is that the steps that you would recommend someone to take, if they had to go on their own on something like this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and this takes a while. Like, it's not a thing that you can knock off in between meetings. Set aside half a day. If you want to take some extra time, take a couple days to really spend some time building the foundation of your LinkedIn profile. Because this is essentially, it's your career portfolio, right? People are looking at it, and it's not whether or not you want to optimize your profile, because there's no questions asked. People are looking at it. It's what kind of impression do you want to make, because they're going to look at your profile regardless. So it's either going to be a good impression or it's going to be a not so good impression. definitely starting from the top down is really important, because you want to always assume that, LinkedIn is busy professionals. They're not probably going to scroll through to the bottom of your LinkedIn profile. So you want to start from the top, make sure that you're clearly communicating who you are, what you do, and who you serve in that very top portion. Your LinkedIn summary is massive. That's an area where you can connect on a personal level with people. We all we grew up on Disney and fairy tales, and we believe the same thing for careers, right? What are the stories that we were attracted to? We love those stories where it was like, it was meant to happen. Right. And so, and I always implore people, tell me what is a why? What is a why? Because you need to learn how to communicate that with other people and connect the dots of your career story so that other people understand why you do what you do. We want to work with people that are passionate about what they do, right? If I met you and you're like, yeah, it's okay, it pays the bills. That would be an immediate ooh, well, I want to find somebody that you talked about earlier about how it makes you excited about LinkedIn. I have friends that are they get me pumped about ads on LinkedIn, and I'm like, wait a second, I don't have this money. Why am I so excited right now? And those are the people you want to hire, right? Because it's it's amazing to be around those people. And I always use the analogy of, you have two doctors and you're about to go into brain surgery, and you can ask them why they do what they do and choose which doctor you want to perform the surgery. And you have one doctor and he says, when I was younger, I had pneumonia and I was in the hospital for a month, and I was so overwhelmed with the care that I got when I was that age, that I wanted to dedicate my life to taking care of other people. You ask the other person, and he's like, ooh, I just really wanted a yacht, right? And that might be partially honest, but at the end of the day, I've had clients that have said, Michaela, it is about the money. There's something beyond that, because there are lots of things that you can do for money, right? Lots of different, why is it this career in particular? And I guarantee you that if you dig deep enough, you will find connections. I have one friend, and she was like, I don't understand why I'm an event planner. And then she started thinking about it. She's like, when I was little, I used to charge people. She would go door to door and she would charge people. They would pay her $1 for her to organize their closets, which is kind of adorable. But she's like, awesome. Oh my gosh, that's why, I've always, I wasn't planning events, but I've always been very, I loved organizing things. I loved adding sticky tabs to books and helping people organize certain things, and everything just kind of came together, right? And so same thing in the manufacturing world. There's a reason why you do what you do, whether it means that you're a more analytical mind and you've always loved to kind of figure out how things work, why things work, and the process of building things. Those stories really, really matter for the person that's listening. I've also been working with clients, including, you will be up next, but adding a little bit of a personal touch by adding a video. That's something that I really am enjoying right now. It's something that's been really, really great for my business. Getting on video, nothing fancy, but just doing a video version of your about section and introducing yourself to the person that's visiting your profile, and then telling them what you want them to do next. So here's my story. This is what I do. This is what we offer. Hey, if this is something that you're looking for, I would love to jump on a call with you. Here's my number. If you're more comfortable with private messages on LinkedIn, you can add that. But that is a really great, powerful way to stand out in a sea of so many other people that might be doing the same sort of thing or the same sort of work that you're doing.
Wow. This is so powerful, Michaela. And I know the work you're doing, and I know it's only been on your own for 2-3 years now. It's so meaningful. And I think that you're just touching the tip of the iceberg. I really believe that, especially post-pandemic, as we get back to whatever the new normal is going to be, there's no doubt companies understand now the true value of just virtual, right, in general. And if that is the case, if you're not going to have these huge networking events, and I'm not saying we'll never have events, but they're going to look different, right? So we need to really be smart with how we go about attracting, connecting, building relationships. So if the listeners, which I highly recommend everybody does this, but if the listeners want to learn more about your services, whether that's helping a company with branding or somebody that individually wants help with their LinkedIn page and profile, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Certainly LinkedIn.
I was gonna say, you better say LinkedIn.
I'm on TikTok, but please don't look at my TikTok. Oh, why did I say that out loud? Nobody even knew that I had a TikTok.
Uh-oh.
Oh gosh. But LinkedIn is definitely a great space. There's my website at michaelalexis.com. I have all sorts of training that's available for all of the things that we've talked about. There's my virtual workshops. I just came out with, at the end of March, it was not planned, but really great timing, growing your LinkedIn or your business with LinkedIn pages. It's actually I have the only courses on the market currently for LinkedIn pages. So showing businesses how to use LinkedIn, which is, I don't understand how that happened, but that is the case. So you can check it out on LinkedIn Learning, or you can look at my.
So real quick, where do they go? They go to LinkedIn Learning on their own page?
LinkedIn Learning, you can either search by my name, so Michaela Alexis, or you can look up the course name. I can also send you the link just so that they can.
I'll put it into the podcast, yes, so everybody knows.
But that's great. So if you have, I believe you have access to LinkedIn Learning. If you have Sales Navigator, you certainly do if you have the premium access. And they are going to hate me for saying this, but if you want to take the course for free, you can sign up for the free trial of LinkedIn Premium, take the courses that you want, and just make sure to end your subscription before they start charging you. But I know that they're introducing all sorts of different offers, 3 months free. I've seen some 6 months free because of the pandemic. And so many people are spending this time trying to learn as much as they can with all these different soft skills. So definitely take advantage of any offers that they have there as well.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time, Michaela, and I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully you we'll be able to share more. I think things are going to change, continually changing. People need to be on top of their game and just stay connected and really watch what's happening, pay attention, and pivot as needed and take action. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, absolutely. It's those small steps every day that make a big difference, especially on LinkedIn.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. Have a great day. We'll see you.
You too. Bye.
Right, bye.